Yes, I'm speaking here also on behalf of Michael Millet. Michael Millet, he was leading on the policy angle in these projects, and he had a bike accident. He's fine, but he cannot come to Berlin. That's why I'm speaking here. But it's also a topic I'm dealing with in my role with WWF International. When we started, I was still with Germany. Then I moved to WWF International and now dealing with global policies. And as I mentioned before, I think this is exactly the projects we are looking for. What's happening on the ground, and then also to build the bridge to global agendas and the other way around. And this project was closely connected with the One Planet Network, the 10-year framework, previous 10-year framework, well, still, but the name changed, 10-year framework on sustainable consumption and production, which has 6 programs. And the 2 programs who are really deeply involved in this journey from 2017 to today is the Sustainable Food System Program, where WWF currently is co-leading, currently with Switzerland and Costa Rica. Probably, I think we are looking for more government or a change of the government countries, but Switzerland will stay in. And we also work very closely with ULF and the Consumer Information Program, where we are as WWF in the advisory board. And I think it's really important because these programs are multi-stakeholder, global networks who also helped us really to disseminate the results, what we have achieved over these years. Once again, and I think that's what we had already talked a lot, why focus on food systems and consumer information. We heard food is a problem, but food transformation of food system is always also the solution. And in this context, we have considered the consumer, but also the supply chain. And what we want to go is on this journey to transparent, sustainable information, and especially on this transformation of food systems. And if I talk about food systems, it's always the production on the ground, food loss and waste, and the sustainable diets. And that's exactly, I think this project is not only on sustainable consumption or production, these projects in the different, or this program is an excellent example how food system transformation could happen on the ground, because we always work with the producers on one hand and we work with the consumers at the other hand. Just a short intro in about the Sustainable Food System Program. It has 3 co-leads, and we have a multi-stakeholder advisory committee, and we have the members. And as mentioned, WWF is co-leading on these programs. And also, this a little bit on the goal of the Sustainable Food System program. One is really to raise awareness at the national, but also at a global level. It's also to create enabling conditions, to build up knowledge, awareness raising, develop information and tools. And I could say this is more or less also both on enabling conditions, information. It's the same for the sustainable, for the consumer information program, and also to build synergies. And we're really very happy to have this tandem between the 2 programs, the consumer information and the sustainable food system programs. Within over this year, we really wanted to bring in what is happening on the ground in global focus, and also really to work towards transformation of food system, especially setting the agenda. And as I mentioned, in 2016, I think the first publication on food systems was from the International Research Panel in 2016. And before that, people are just talking about production, food loss and waste, but it never had this systemic approach. And I think that's really important to keep this in mind. And within the Sustainable Food System Program, we organized conferences, participation in key policy fora. This means at the global conferences, the biodiversity one, the land one, the climate one, and also on working towards and influencing or setting policy agendas. And in this context also, the program has developed global conferences. The first started 2017 in South Africa, moving on to Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica was a very, very important conference. And also then in 2019, the UN Food System Summit, where WWF was leading one of the 5 action tracks, the one on boosting nature positive production. Thailand, unfortunately, was a virtual one due to COVID, but I could say it was also a very successful one because it was the one on the way to the UN Food System Summit, which happened in 2021. And we just came back from the fourth conference in Asia, in Vietnam, where Ulf and I also participated, and where we also had bring and presented, and Plai was there, where we presented projects from your project, for example, the TCA. So we also have tried to bring in what's happening at local level at an international conference, because that's what we need to really move agendas, also to show what's happening, to take the lessons learned, and to motivate other member states and countries to step in this process. And I think this is for me, and this is so small here on the screen. I know now why you always are looking at the big screen. I think this is really interesting to see how food system transformation and food systems made it in global policies. And I could say nowadays really food made it to the biodiversity, to climate, and to the land conferences. And to the UN conventions. And if you look here in 2018 in New York, and I think that was, we had a very nice event at that time in the German House, or in the declaration, the stakeholder adopt a sustainable food system approach. Maybe it's today it looks like, oh, that's mainstream, but at that time it was really something new. Then we followed up by the FAO conference, which integrated food system. We had the UNEA declaration 2019, where the sustainable food system and sustainable production and consumption made it to the resolution. Followed by UNGA, the Committee for Food Security, the UN Food System Summit, just to mention some of these conferences. And if you look at the outcome of the Montreal, of the Global Biodiversity Framework, at least 8 of the targets are closely connected to food systems. There is one, for example, the target 16, which is on sustainable consumption. And now it's our task really to influence or to work with the member states to bring in food system in the nationally biodiversity strategy and action plans. And the same on the climate angle. We heard about 27 to 30%, some talks about 35% of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the food sector, and there is an urgency to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. And this leads us then again to the nationally determined contribution and how we could really work towards more to integrate food system in the NDCs. But also to mention, we had a lot of publication. That's one from the Consumer Information Program. We had written policy briefs and also talked about, and also other publications like how to integrate or to build up multi-stakeholder approaches. So this project also brought out, has as an outcome also a lot of very, very interesting publications, guidance really on implementation of sustainable food systems. So, and then that's my last one. I think we go to the coffee break, but over to Katyusha.